speaking of like social anxiety, I was curious because one of the things that I get nervous about a lot is just awkwardness, right? Like I think the fear, I don't know, for me, the fear of not having anything to say comes from just not liking the awkward silence and being in that position. And I've been trying to battle in my head, like, what's the best way to get around that? Besides just, I don't know, getting better at conversation skills. And I think part of it is just exposing yourself to a shit ton of awkward silence until your body or your mind just comes a little more relaxed to it.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a huge point. Like, since I'm in like psychology and I know a lot about like clinical psychology and stuff, anxiety, like a huge way to get over it is just exposure therapy. So if you're constantly like the way that they would treat social anxiety, we talked about this in my class, is like go out and just do some like dumb shit and just like say like just mess up when you're speaking or something. Yeah. Like be like if you're at your job or something, you just like completely mess up and say words wrong and then just like be like and like it helps you to like realize that even if you do that, like nothing is gonna happen. Like they don't really they're probably gonna forget about it in like 5-10 minutes.
Dude, I hate it because I know if I did that stuff, like practice that, like I feel super confident that you're right. Like it would go away, but it's just so hard to get yourself to do it.
That's the one thing about exposure therapy. Apparently, it's like the most effective form of therapy that we have for like most mental health problems. Like for depression, like there's certain things that you could do to help, but like exposure therapy is more effective at helping anxiety issues than any like other form of treatment is for any like, I don't know if I could say any, but like most mental health problems. But the one issue is just starting, because no one wants to start. Like if you're like, I have this huge fear of snakes, you're not going to be like, oh, I want to go in this pit of snakes real quick and get over it. Like that's not my first instinct. I don't think that's anyone's. But it's a hard thing, and I think that's where talking to people, like, it's going to happen. Like, if you just start talking to more people, it's going to happen. But the more you talk to people, the more you're, like, preparing yourself for it in, like, other conversations. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah, no, it makes complete sense. It's funny because I actually tried doing this thing last semester where I get kind of approach anxiety, like approaching strangers and starting a conversation. Because in my mind, I have, like, it's like, oh, like, I feel like I got to have something important to say if I'm going to, it's like irrational beliefs. But anyway, to try to do like a bit of exposure therapy, I try to do every day between classes. I would put my phone in my backpack so I couldn't look at it. So then I need to know what time it is. So I'd go up to 10 people and ask them the time. It's a very simple thing. There's very low stakes, unless you fuck up saying, what is the time? Like, you can't really... you go all Shakespearean on the... But I've noticed... I only did it for like 3 days because I was like, this is taking a lot of time. But I kind of want to try it again next semester where you slowly just increase the amount of things you do. So maybe a week, every day, 10 people you ask the time. Yeah. And then the next day... you ask maybe directions somewhere because, it's more of a conversation. And then maybe it's a random question. Yeah. And I think that could help with type of exposure therapy type stuff because not jumping into the deep end, but maybe slowly making your way up there can make it easier.
That's part of it. Like normally they form a hierarchy, like what you're willing to do at first. Because like if someone's like really scared of snakes, they're not going to be like, oh, put the snake around my shoulders first. Like, they're going to probably be like, you'll be in a room with a snake. It'll be like 10 feet away behind glass or something. Like, that'll be the first thing you do. And you slowly, like, increase your, like, the intensity of your exposure until you could, like, finally get to the point where it's like, oh, I'll do the, like, scariest thing I could think of. So that's, like, a good way to approach it, too. Like, if you're going to just do something, like, small, and then, like, eventually you go up to someone and you're like, what are you doing later or something? And because, like, everyone thinks that's probably an awkward question. Like, but if you like get to that point where you feel comfortable enough to do it, then you could like get over your fear of just talking to anyone for any reason. To be honest.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I think thinking now actually, I think the way I'm doing this podcast is in some sense a bit of exposure therapy for me because I get nervous. I was like nervous to have like long form conversations, right? And one of my main goals is to get professors on in like fields that I'm interested in. Yeah. But I started with like podcasts just by myself, so no guest. I'm not uploading those, but I started just to get used to it. And then I'm starting with like close friends, like y'all, the people that I've had on so far. And then I actually wrote a whole plan. Like then I'm going to start with more acquaintances I have at USC. So they're not super close, but like I know them still. And then I was thinking like graduate students at USC doing interesting things, and then professors at USC, and then so damn it, I feel like doing exposure therapy subconsciously, bro.
No, you didn't even know you were doing it, but now, no, I mean that's exactly how it works. You kind of just gotta like. That's what I think a big thing about life is. You kind of just gotta ease yourself into like a lot of things, but you gotta like actually do it because I think sometimes people hear that and then they like never really like